The car was a silent fortress moving through the chaotic veins of Seoul. It was an armored Maybach, the glass tinted so dark the world outside was reduced to ghostly shadows. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of leather and the lingering electricity of the confrontation in the CEO's office. Juliet sat rigidly against the plush seat, her hand still engulfed in Min-ho's. He hadn't let go since they stepped into the elevator. His grip wasn't painful, but it was absolute, a physical tether keeping her from drifting into the panic that was clawing at the edges of her mind. "Where are we going?" Juliet asked. Her voice sounded steady, a testament to years of boardroom negotiations, but her insides were vibrating. Min-ho didn't look at her immediately. He was typing furiously on his phone with his free hand, his brow furrowed in concentration. "The airport is too obvious. My mother has eyes in Incheon and Gimpo. Train stations are out. We're going to the sanctuary." The sanctuary. "My grandfather's estate in Gapyeong. It's off the grid, private security. No one enters without my biometrics." He finally hit send on a message, slid the phone into his pocket, and turned his dark gaze on her. The mask of the ruthless CEO slipped, revealing the terrified man beneath. "Are you okay? You're trembling." "I'm processing," Juliet said, exhaling a long breath. "Min-ho, your mother just threatened to destroy my life, and you just threatened to burn down your legacy. This isn't a strategy meeting anymore. This is crazy." "It's necessary." He lifted her hand, pressing his lips to her knuckles, his eyes never leaving hers. "I told you, I protect what's mine, and you are mine, Juliet. I don't care what the contract says or what society thinks or what my mother threatens. You are it for me." "You told her we were getting married," Juliet whispered. Was that just a tactic, a way to shut her up? Min-ho's expression hardened, his thumb tracing the veins of her hand. "I have never played games with you, Juliet. I have lied by omission, yes, but I have never lied about my intent." He leaned in, the dark interior of the car making the moment feel incredibly intimate. "I intend to marry you, someday, when the war is won and you're ready." I threw that out there to let her know the stakes, to let her know that she isn't fighting a fling, she's fighting my future wife. The weight of the word wife settled between them. It should have been terrifying. It should have sent her running. But looking at him, seeing the fierce, unyielding devotion in his eyes, Juliet felt the strangest sensation. She felt safe. For the first time in her life, she wasn't the one holding up the sky. She wasn't the strong black woman who had to be twice as good to get half as far. She was just chairized. "Gapyeong," she said softly, "is there Wi-Fi? Because if we're going to war with the chairwoman of Yongsan Holdings, I'm going to need my laptop." A slow, devastating smile spread across Min-ho's face. It was the first time he'd smiled for real in 24 hours. "That's my girl. Yes, there's Wi-Fi, and a secure server." "Good," Juliet said, her consultant brain finally kicking into gear, overriding the fear. "Because your mother made a mistake. She thinks I'm just a disruption. She forgot that I'm the best strategist in New York." The drive took 2 hours, the urban sprawl of Seoul giving way to the jagged, mist-covered mountains of the countryside. The estate was hidden deep within a valley, accessible only by a winding private road flanked by dense pine forests. When the heavy iron gates parted, Juliet gasped. It wasn't a modern glass mansion like she expected. It was a sprawling, traditional Hanok compound, beautifully preserved but modernized, sitting in harmony with the nature around it. Snow had begun to fall, dusting the curved tiled roofs in white. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "It's the only place I can sleep," Min-ho admitted. "The city, it's too loud, too full of people wanting things from me." They were ushered inside by a silent, efficient staff who seemed to understand the gravity of the situation without a word being spoken. The interior was a blend of old and new, warm wood floors, sliding paper doors, but with state-of-the-art heating and lighting. Min-ho led her to the master suite, a vast room that looked out over a private garden where a koi pond steamed in the cold air. "Rest," he commanded gently. "The staff will bring food. I need to secure the perimeter and make a few calls to the legal team." "Min-ho," Juliet stopped him, her hand catching his arm. He paused, tension radiating from his frame. "I can't stop, Juliet. If I stop moving, I'll start thinking about what she might try to do to you, and I'll lose my mind. You need to stop for a minute. She stepped closer, invading his space, smelling the unique mix of expensive cologne and stress that clung to him. We are safe here, right? Yes. Then be here, with me. She reached up, her fingers loosening his tie, then unbuttoning the top button of his shirt. The war can wait an hour, I need you. The admission seemed to snap the last of his restraint. Min-ho made a low, guttural sound and crushed her mouth to his. This wasn't the desperate kiss of the terrace, nor the reassuring kiss of the office. This was a claiming. He walked her backward until her legs hit the edge of the low, wide bed, and they tumbled onto the mattress together, a tangle of limbs and heat. Clothes were discarded with frantic urgency. When Min-ho pulled back to look at her, his eyes were blown wide, dark pools of adoration and hunger. He traced the curve of her hip, his hand dark and tattooed against her rich, brown skin. You are a masterpiece, he murmured, his voice rough. I want to memorize you. You've been watching me for 6 months, she whispered, arching into his touch. I thought you already had. Watching isn't tasting. He lowered his head, his lips grazing the hollow of her throat. Watching isn't feeling your heart beat against my chest. The intimacy that followed was a revelation. Min-ho was a man of power, used to dominance, but with Juliet, he was worshipful. He took his time, learning the map of her body with a thoroughness that made her head spin. He kissed every scar, every curve, murmuring praises in Korean that she didn't need to translate to understand. For Juliet, it was a surrendering of control she hadn't known she needed. To be held by a man who looked at her like she was the only source of light in the world, it healed parts of her she hadn't realized were broken. When she finally cried out, her fingers digging into the dragons inked across his shoulders, it felt like an exorcism of all the fear and doubt. Afterward, they lay tangled in the silk sheets, the only sound the soft hush of snow falling outside and their synchronized breathing. Min-ho's head rested on her chest, his arm draped heavily over her waist, anchoring her. I'm not going back to New York, she said into the silence. Min-ho went still. He lifted his head, propping himself up on one elbow to look at her. What? Your mother offered me $5 million to leave. She threatened my family. She thinks she can bully me into submission. Juliet's eyes flashed with steel. I don't run from bullies, Min-ho, and I don't leave unfinished business. Juliet, if you stay, it's going to get ugly. The press, the board, the social circles, they will be merciless. I've been black in corporate America for 10 years. Do you think I haven't dealt with hostility? Do you think I haven't been underestimated? She reached up, cupping his face. She made a tactical error. She made it personal. And now I'm not just your consultant, I'm your partner. Min-ho kissed her palm, his eyes shining with fierce pride. My partner. So, Juliet sat up, pulling the sheet around her, her mind already racing. We have a board meeting in 48 hours, don't we? Emergency session called by the chairwoman. She's going to move for a vote of no confidence. She'll argue that my reckless behavior canceling the merger, the scandal with you, proves I'm unfit to lead. And does she have the votes? It's close. She has the old guard. I have the younger tech investors. But the swing votes, they care about stability. And right now, I look unstable. Juliet swung her legs out of bed. Then we need to change the narrative. Where is my laptop? Min-ho watched her, a look of pure awe on his face. God, I love you. Juliet paused, looking back over her shoulder, a small, genuine smile playing on her lips. I know. Now get dressed, CEO Han. We have an empire to save. The next 36 hours were a blur of caffeine, conference calls, and strategy. The sanctuary transformed into a war room. Juliet took lead on the strategy. She knew that trying to fight the chairwoman on tradition was a losing battle. They had to fight on growth. She's attacking your character, Juliet explained, packing the floor of the study, wearing one of Min-ho's white dress shirts that hung to her knees. We can't defend against that. If we deny, we look guilty, so we don't talk about character, we talk about profit. The expansion, Min-ho said, watching her from the desk. Exactly, the reason you hired me. The project she thinks is a waste of time. Juliet pulled up a projection on the screen. We accelerate the timeline. I have contacts at the 3 biggest streaming platforms in the US. They've been dying for a direct pipeline to Korean content without the middleman. We've been negotiating with them for months. They're stalling. They were stalling because they were dealing with your VPs who didn't understand the Western market. They weren't dealing with me as a partner. Juliet grabbed her phone. I went to business school with the VP of content at Atlas Media. If I can get him on the phone, and if we can offer him an exclusive first-look deal on Yongson's entire back catalog, plus the new Idol reality show, that stock jump alone would make the chairwoman's merger look like pocket change. Min-ho stood up. Atlas Media, that's $1 billion contract. Yes, and if you walk into that board meeting with a signed letter of intent from Atlas, the shareholders won't care who you're sleeping with. They'll be too busy counting their money. But can you get it done in 2 days? Juliet smirked, a dangerous, confident expression that made Min-ho's breath catch. Watch me. While Juliet worked the phones, leveraging every favor and connection she had built over a decade in New York, Min-ho worked on the defense. He dug into the financials of the Park merger, the one his mother was so desperate to revive. I found something, he said, late into the second night. The room was littered with takeout containers and coffee cups. Juliet looked up from her laptop, eyes red-rimmed but alert. What? The Park family company. Their liquidity is smoke and mirrors. They're over-leveraged in real estate bad debt. If we had merged, their debt would have become our debt. It would have tanked us within 3 years. Does the board know? No, my mother suppressed the due diligence report. She wanted the alliance so badly she ignored the math. Juliet let out a low whistle. That's it. That's the nail in the coffin. She's not just old-fashioned, she's negligent. She was willing to bankrupt the company to maintain a social alliance. Min-ho looked at the screen, his face grim. This will destroy her reputation, Juliet. She's my mother. Juliet walked over to him, placing her hands on his shoulders. She tried to destroy yours. She threatened to deport me. She is willing to sacrifice you for her ego. You aren't destroying her, Min-ho. You're stopping her from destroying everything you built. He leaned his head back against her stomach, closing his eyes. When this is over, I'm taking you on a vacation, somewhere with a beach, no phones. Deal, but first we have a meeting to crash. The morning of the board meeting, the sky over Seoul was a brilliant, hard blue. The air was frigid. Yongsan Holdings, headquarters, was a hive of activity. Reporters were camped out in the lobby, sensing blood in the water. The rumors of Min-ho's ousting had leaked, likely by the chairwoman's design. When Min-ho's car pulled up, the flashes were blinding, but he didn't get out alone. The door opened, and Min-ho stepped out, looking every inch the king in a razor-sharp charcoal suit. He turned and offered his hand. Juliet emerged. She wore a suit of stark white, a power move in a sea of gray and black. Her hair was pulled back in a severe, elegant twist, her gold jewelry gleaming. She didn't look like a mistress. She didn't look like a scandal. She looked like royalty. A hush fell over the press, followed by a roar of questions. Is it true you're resigning? Who is the woman? Mr. Han, what about the Park merger? Min-ho ignored them all. He placed his hand on the small of Juliet's back, a public claim of possession and protection, and guided her through the parting sea of cameras. He didn't look down. He didn't apologize. He walked with the terrifying confidence of a man who held all the aces. In the elevator, the silence was heavy. Ready? Min-ho asked, checking his cuffs. Born ready, Juliet replied, though her heart was hammering against her ribs. The boardroom was on the top floor. When the doors opened, the atmosphere was funereal. The 20 members of the board were seated around the massive oval table. At the head sat Chairwoman Park Jae-yoon. She looked triumphant. You're late, she said, her voice cutting through the room. And you brought guests. This is a closed session, Min-ho. Ms. Juliet has no business here. Actually, Min-ho said, his voice booming as he walked to the front of the room, Juliet falling into step beside him. She does, as the lead consultant on the International Expansion Project. She is here to present the quarterly results. There is no expansion project, the chairwoman scoffed. We are shutting that division down. Now sit down so we can proceed with the vote on your removal. We can vote, Minho said calmly. But I think the shareholders might want to hear why our stock is up 12% in pre-market trading this morning. That got their attention. Muttering broke out around the table. Tablets were tapped. Eyes widened. What did you do? The chairwoman stood up, her composure cracking. Juliet, Minho gestured to the floor. Juliet stepped forward. She didn't use notes. She didn't need them. She commanded the room with a charisma that rivaled Minho's. Distinguished board members, she began, her voice clear and authoritative. For months, the question has been whether Yongsan Holdings looks to the past or the future. The proposed merger with Park Industries was a look to the past, a consolidation of domestic assets in a shrinking market. She pressed a button on the remote she'd pulled from her pocket. The main screen behind the chairwoman flickered to life. This morning, at 6:00 a.m. New York time, I secured a signed exclusive partnership agreement with Atlas Media. Gasps echoed around the room. This deal guarantees global distribution for all Yongsan content for the next 5 years. The initial licensing fee is $1.2 billion, with a projected revenue share of an additional $3 billion over the contract term. The numbers hung in the air, staggering in their magnitude. Furthermore, Juliet continued, pivoting to face the chairwoman directly. We conducted a forensic audit of the Park Industries proposal. We found that Park Industries is holding $400 million in undisclosed toxic debt. Had the chairwoman's merger gone through, Yongsan would be liable for that debt today. The screen changed to show the red ink of the park financials. The room erupted. Board members who had been loyal to the chairwoman were now looking at her with horror. Lies, the chairwoman shrieked, slamming her hand on the table. He doctored the files. He is trying to humiliate his own family for this foreigner. Minho stepped in front of Juliet, shielding her not physically, but ideologically. The files are verified by Deloitte, Minho said, his voice ice cold. The Atlas deal is signed. The money is already in escrow. He looked around the table, making eye contact with every single member. So you have a choice. You can vote to remove me, install my mother, and inherit a merger that will bankrupt this company within 2 years. Or you can accept the Atlas deal, accept the new direction, and we all become very, very rich. He paused, letting the silence stretch. But know this. The Atlas deal is contingent on the current consulting team remaining in place, and it is contingent on me remaining as CEO. If I go, the deal goes. If Juliet goes, the deal goes. It was checkmate. The chairwoman sank back into her chair, her face ashen. She looked at the board members, seeing the greed and relief in their eyes, and she knew she had lost. One by one, the hands went up, not for removal, but for retention. Motion to retain CEO hand carried unanimously, the board secretary announced, his voice trembling. Minho didn't smile, he just nodded. Thank you, now if you'll excuse us, we have work to do. He turned to his mother. She looked small now, stripped of her terrifying aura. Mother, Minho said quietly, I suggest you take a sabbatical. The countryside is beautiful this time of year. It was a banishment, public, polite, and absolute. Minho took Juliet's hand, and together they walked out of the boardroom, leaving the chaos behind them. They didn't stop until they reached Minho's office. The moment the door clicked shut, the adrenaline crashed. Minho leaned back against the door, exhaling a breath that seemed to have been held for days. He looked at Juliet, who was leaning against his desk, her hands gripping the edge to steady herself. We did it, she whispered. You did it, he corrected. He pushed off the door and crossed the room in 2 strides, lifting her up and setting her on the edge of the desk. He stepped between her legs, his hands gripping her waist. You were magnificent. I have never seen anything like that. I told you, she smiled shakily. I'm good at my job. You saved my company. You saved me. His expression turned serious, the intensity in his eyes burning her. Do you know how close I was to losing it all, if you hadn't found that leverage? We're a team, Minho. That's what partners do. Partners, he tasted the word. I like that word, but I prefer the other one. Which one? Wife. Juliet's breath hitched. Minho, we just survived a corporate coup. Maybe we should slow down. No, he shook his head. I'm done with slow. I'm done with waiting. Life is too short, and there are too many people trying to get in the way. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Juliet stared at it. You had that in your pocket during the board meeting. I've had it in my pocket for 3 days. I bought it the morning after the gala. I was going to give it to you when I came to your office, but then you tried to resign. He opened the box. It wasn't a massive, gaudy diamond like the ones the Chaebol wives wore. It was a stunning, rare sapphire, deep blue like the midnight sky, surrounded by intricate goldwork that resembled the scales of a dragon. It's custom, he said shyly. The sapphire for truth, the gold for protection. Minho, tears pricked Juliet's eyes. I know it's crazy. I know we've technically only been together for a few days, but I have known you for 6 months, Juliet. I know your strength, your kindness, your brilliance. I know that I am a better man when you are near me. He took the ring out, holding it poised over her finger. I'm not asking you to marry me tomorrow. I know you have a life, a business, family in New York. We will figure it out. We will live on planes if we have to. I will move headquarters to New York if that's what you want. But I need you to know that I am committed to this. To us. He looked deep into her eyes, stripping himself bare. Juliet, will you do me the extraordinary honor of letting me love you for the rest of my life? Juliet looked at the ring, then at the man holding it. The man who had risked his fortune, defied his family, and faced down a boardroom for her. The man who saw her not as a conquest, but as an equal. The logic in her brain tried to list the complications, the cultural differences, the distance, the scrutiny. But her heart, loud and clear, told the logic to shut the hell up. She reached out, her hand steady, and let him slide the ring onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Yes, she whispered. Yes, Minho, yes. He didn't cheer. He didn't shout. He simply buried his face in her neck and held her like she was the most precious thing in the universe. And when he kissed her, it tasted like victory. 1 year later. The red carpet of the Met Gala in New York was a frenzy of flashing lights. The theme was East meets West, and the press was hungry for the night's power couple. A limousine pulled up, and the crowd roared. Minho stepped out first, devastating in a modern tuxedo with subtle embroidery along the lapel that mirrored his tattoos. He turned and offered his hand, helping Juliet out. She was breathtaking. She wore a gown of shimmering gold silk that flowed like liquid metal, designed by a Korean couturier but styled with an edge that was pure New York. On her finger, the sapphire ring caught the flashbulbs, blazing blue fire. They moved down the carpet, comfortable in the chaos. Mr. Han, Ms. Juliet, a reporter shouted. Rumor has it Youngson Holdings is opening a new U.S. headquarters in Manhattan. Is it true? Minho paused, his arm wrapped securely around Juliet's waist. He looked at her, a silent communication passing between them. It is, Minho answered, his English perfect. My fiancé tells me the coffee here is better. The crowd laughed. Juliet, how are you handling the wedding planning while running 2 international consulting firms? Juliet smiled, radiant and unshakable, with excellent time management and a very supportive partner. They reached the top of the stairs, pausing for the photographers. The world saw a glamorous power couple. They saw billions of dollars and impossible beauty. But as the cameras flashed, Minho leaned in close, his lips brushing her ear. You look dangerous tonight, he whispered. I feel dangerous, she murmured back, her hand tightening on his arm. I successfully negotiated the acquisition of that tech startup this afternoon. Sexy, he nipped her earlobe, hidden from the cameras. Let's do 1 lap, say hello to the Vogue editor, and then leave. Minho, we just got here. I know, but I'd rather be back at our penthouse. I have a new tattoo idea I want to run by you. Oh, what is it? He pulled back just enough to look at her, his dark eyes filled with that familiar, intense heat that still made her knees weak after a year. A crown, he said softly, right over my heart, because that's where my queen lives. Juliet laughed, the sound bright and free, rising above the noise of the crowd. She kissed him, right there on the steps of the Met, not caring who was watching or what the etiquette was. She had come to Seoul looking for a contract. She had found a kingdom. And standing beside the man who would burn the world to keep her warm, she knew their story was just beginning.